Hello and welcome to IDology Podcast. I'm your host Jesse,
And I'm your host, Brendan.
and today we have on Tyler. Tyler, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure thing. I am currently a senior in high school. I am from Central Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I started out a few years back, actually, basically the complete opposite of what I am now. I used to be kind of on the border between your general socialist and communist, but now as I've kind of opened up and looked towards other things that are going on, I slowly shifted over towards. I became a libertarian eventually, and now I more shifted over into the nationalist and kind of white nationalist, not as far as some of the people you would see today.
Okay, that's a very drastic shift.
Yeah.
What happened that made you change your mind? Is there anything specific, or what was it like?
Well, I think whenever I first started getting into it, it was just kind of you hear the whole thing about how schools kind of are starting to indoctrinate people more into the lefter mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But then I came into contact with people that are that were more politically active than me at the time, and I started talking to them. They kind of pointed out how different things like the communism has failed repeatedly, and I was kind of along the same thinking. I wasn't quite a communist back then, but I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I can see, being as interested in history as I am, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't see it working ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I shifted over into kind of like a general moderate, not really leaning one way or the other on politics. They just kind of rubbed off on me becoming conservative and libertarian in the past election. But from then I started seeing like the whole migrant thing in Europe and issues along those kind of lines, and it forced me over just that little bit extra step.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you define yourself as, using a political term or ideology?
Generally, I would say I'm a nationalist. People would often call me a white nationalist, or they say I'm aligned with the alt-right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there is a difference, I'm assuming, between a white nationalist and a white supremacist, right?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Okay.
Or, well, it's white supremacists will sometimes say they're white nationalists, but not all white nationalists would be white supremacists. It's kind of like the whole rectangle squares kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's pretty good. So this is a little bit off topic, but we're going to try out a new thing where we try and doodle a little bit of what we think you look like based on your voice.
Okay.
Okay, and then at the end of it, we'll send you the pictures of what we doodled, and you'll tell us which one looks more accurate. How's that?
All right.
Okay, good. So back to it. Are you politically active in your community, or on social media or anything?
I would like to be. I live in a fairly small community, so I don't really have a whole lot of political activity around here.
Mm-hmm.
But I do try to I enjoy talking to people about politics and kind of spreading around in different different political beliefs, even if it's not my own. I like to just kind of get that stuff spread around so more and more people know about the different beliefs, and they don't just kind of go and believe what other people tell them is true about another belief.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is a bit different because of with my belief, a lot of people currently are getting their lives are being ruined for being doxed as Nazis and stuff like that, even if they're just along the same lines as what I have, such as after Charlottesville, everybody there is being doxed and fired from their jobs and everything. So I try to keep it a bit.
Someone did
off
die
of
there.
Social media.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, you take one event and apply it to, I can't remember the exact numbers there, but it was hundreds, maybe even around 1,000 people there, and all of a sudden everybody's getting hit with that.
Yeah. You can't apply it equally to everyone who identifies themselves somewhat be
Yeah,
conservative as a
it's
Nazi.
just like a lot of like the more left kind of uh basically equality across the boards kind of people.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a terrorist attack in Europe or something, they're saying, "Oh, it's an isolated case. You can't apply that to all Muslims or something like that." And I mean, I totally agree with that, but
Yeah.
it's the same kind of case with this.
hmm Speaking of Muslims and of social media, we actually had a guest on who was charged with terrorists, like terrorists. What was it?
I don't know if it was just like, I guess, terrorist. I don't know specifically.
I forgot already.
Yeah,
It was
but
like terrorist actions or
yeah,
something.
he promoted terrorist organization through Twitter, right? He
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
retweeted and
yeah. He
did a lot
was.
of publicity stuff for them.
Oh yeah, he was linked to ISIS through like Twitter, and he would post their propaganda and stuff on there. So
Yeah.
that's pretty wild.
Oh
You've not been charged with terrorism, have you?
no, no, I have not. No
That's good.
charges.
That's good. That's good. So it was just the holidays. Does your family celebrate Christmas?
My family does. I do not. I actually celebrate Yule as my. I am an Odinist or Norse pagan, as a lot of people refer to it as. So,
Really? Okay.
I yes.
That's cool. So what all does that entail? Like being an Odinist, what does that come with?
Uh, it has people from all across the board. You know, you have a lot of people that we call it universalist pagans, which is basically everybody included. You know, it's very kind of liberal and environmentalist.
hmm
Most people within it are environmentalists to an extent. I know I am as well.
Really?
Uh, yeah, and then you've got more folkish pagans, such as myself, which are kind of, in the case of Odinism, it's more the Germanic peoples can celebrate or can practice that religion, whereas it's not just kind of trying to exclude people. It's basically saying, hey, ancestors and where you come from is an important part of your religious beliefs. You
hmm
should honor your ancestors by following the same beliefs that they had way back hundreds, thousands of years ago.
Okay. So you said Yule is what you did for Christmas or the holiday season?
Yes.
Okay. Is that like Kwanzaa for white people?
Yeah. It's actually what Christianity was based off of. So,
Oh,
or not Christianity. It's well, Christmas. Sorry.
that's fine.
So it's very similar.
hmm
Because Christmas was actually created as a conversion tactic to convert pagans into Christians.
hmm
It was basically a easing of conversion. Say they go into Scandinavia and say, "Hey, this practice that you have for this time of year, it's pretty much the same thing we have now, and you know, you'll feel right at home with us."
hmm
So it's pretty much the same thing, except whereas Christmas is celebrated on the 25th,
hmm
Yule goes from the winter solstice, which this year was the 21st of December, through the new year.
Okay. So you give gifts and stuff, or you receive gifts? Do both, I guess.
Um, some people do. I do just because the rest of my family celebrates Christmas, so
Yeah.
I kind of join in with that bit.
hmm
So other people just kind of like to lay low, just kind of keep it their own thing. They just like to kind of relax, do whatever on their own, not really worry about other things.
Yeah.
Which I like to do that throughout the rest of the season.
hmm So, what is your family? Is your family supportive of it, or are they apathetic to your well, right now, like your Odinist, your more religious beliefs?
Well, they don't really care too much about it. They're not really hardly religious themselves or anything,
Yeah.
so they're not too worried about it. Basically, as long as I'm not going around, you know, like attacking other people with it or anything, which I'm not, and I don't know of a single other person of my belief that does. So,
Well, I mean,
I kind of keep it to myself.
I guess the Vikings kind of did. You could raid people. That'd be kind of keeping
Yeah,
within tradition. That'd be
yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, that was kind of back then it was more of a economic gain kind of thing. It wasn't
yeah.
necessarily, hey, our religion versus yours. It was kind of
Mm,
just, we want to go take stuff because life is hard over here.
mm, yeah. That's pretty neat. So, I'm interested in also how your family understands your political leanings because the way that the way you're brought up and the way your family is politically influences people quite a bit. So, what do they think about yours political view?
Um, well, in the case of my dad, he doesn't really get too political. He stays out of all that stuff.
Yeah.
My mom, she she doesn't really butt into my political beliefs or anything all that often. Although occasionally, like if we're in the car together, she has like CNN or something on, and they're talking about a certain event. She'll ask my opinion on it,
Hmm.
but I don't really go too much farther than that. So they don't really know my full political beliefs. They just know I'm typically right leaning.
Yeah. Okay. Are they right leaning or are they moderate?
Uh, I have no clue about my dad. Like I said, he tends to stay out of politics, so he
Yeah.
doesn't really talk about that all too much. My mom, she tends to go either way. This past election, she voted for Hillary, so she was more left leaning in the past election for candidate wise.
Hmm.
But it was she kind of goes either way depending on who's who.
Hmm. Did you vote? Were you old enough to vote in the last election?
No, I was not.
Okay. A lot of people weren't.
Although, yeah, if I was back then with the beliefs I had, I would have likely voted for Gary Johnson. But as my views have shifted since then, I don't know who I would have voted for. Probably Trump.
Mhm. So are you supportive of the way the Trump presidency has handled things so far?
Um, for the most part, I don't really have any problems with it.
Hmm.
I don't, I don't really. There's nothing I'm too happy about. Nothing I'm too negative about.
Yeah.
Things have been pretty decent so far. Nothing too bad either way.
Hmm. Um, in a white nationalist society, uh, I assume that's like your not a utopia, but the preferred society that you would live in, right?
Uh, it depends because there some of the more the general white nationalists that get a lot of media attention. They're saying ethno state only white people are here.
Hmm.
For me, it's not so much of that. It's in the case of America, I'd say majority white, but other people are welcomed here. For me, it just comes into more relationship wise. Like I'm against the idea of race mixing in a relationship.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
For the one part, it causes the interbreeding of it causes different race populations to decrease. Such as right now, you're seeing the white race drastically decrease in population because they're being bred out into a more mixed race group, especially over in Europe, where they're essentially importing migrants from North Africa and the Middle East, which are interbreeding with the white population that is native to Europe. And as such, the white population is going down, the mixed race is going up to take over that population.
Why is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm not
Well,
I'm not arguing. I'm just asking your opinion.
yeah, no. For me, I mean, it really depends on who you're talking about. For me, that part kind of actually ties in with my religious beliefs. It's more of a I like to honor my ancestors, those who came before me, those who allowed me to be here today.
Hmm.
And as I originated from the European people, I like to honor the my European ancestors, as I would expect African people to honor their African ancestors, the Asians to honor their Asian ancestors, and so on.
Hmm.
But other than that, there's also the fact that there's actually a negative health uh, effect of interracial breeding.
Hmm. Ooh. Okay, what are they?
The big one is that first off, the genetics of the different races are not necessarily compatible, and as such, whenever you have, um, such as I believe there's one case of somebody with leukemia, which I'm using as an example,
Yeah.
uh, and they required I believe it was a bone marrow transplant, but because they were of, I believe it was half um, Japanese and half European. I can't remember what exactly, but they were unable to find a match for him bone marrow wise, and he had like around a 2% chance of survival of it. Whereas for somebody with that specific type of, I believe it was leukemia, like I said,
Yeah.
and they were like just a pure white, pure Asian, pure black, etc.
Yeah.
It's around a 90% survival rate.
Okay.
So really, you just have a harder time finding matches for things like bone marrow and other necessary parts of survival in cases where you need a transplant or a donor.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, did you does your political beliefs, do you get yelled at? You said you're in high school and you talked a little bit about the left wing. I think you mentioned it, how public education tends to be a little bit left leaning.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty lucky. A lot of the professors and teachers that I have are kind of, the ones that are left leaning, they don't make too big of a deal out of it. If
Yeah.
so, they're just kind of hey, I don't agree with you, but here's my point of view. You're welcome to have your own. You can look at it from all angles, which is good. That's how it should be, in my opinion. Some of the students, you have like very left wing students at the school,
Yeah.
and you know, they disagree with me. They disagree with some of the people in my friend group, which even if they're not quite as far as I am,
Mhm.
they'll kind of battle with us. But for the most part, I like to just kind of keep it calm around them. And if they do decide to come up and try to talk to me, I just kind of keep it relaxed and, actually discuss instead of argue.
Yeah. Okay. Did you get anything for Christmas that you liked?
Uh, Not really. I'm actually, as I don't really do too much with Christmas, I'm just kind of I don't really care. Get me whatever you want. For the most part, just give me like cash or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how I am. Not a huge deal. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Alrighty. Since it's a little bit of a Christmas themed podcast, I guess it's also Yule themed now.
Huh, yeah. Okay.
So, are there any, like, if you lived on your own, would you do any like traditional stuff? Like Yule, you said it was the basis for Christianity, and I've heard that before, and that has to do with like the pine tree, right? The
Uh,
needle tree.
it would likely be ash tree, but for the most part, people just kind of take a tree in general.
Hmm.
So
Okay, kind of like a like Game of Thrones with that one tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's that called? The Godswood. With the tree with the face on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. But so Christmas, we have Christmas carols. Are there any Yule carols?
uh, not to my knowledge, I haven't heard any.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's not a very like widely practiced religion or anything, so you don't really have as much of that.
Hmm.
You do have typically like recreations or general like folk songs, basically, which tend to be in like Scandinavian languages.
Yeah.
Um, Being of Swedish heritage myself, I do understand a little bit of it. I've been able to learn some of those songs,
Hmm.
so I have those.
So
Not
you.
quite Christmassy or anything, but
So your family, you have established through, genealogical roots that you are from Sweden, or your family
yeah,
just has always been.
Yes, my grandparents moved here from Sweden.
Okay, that's pretty cool. You know what year they moved here?
I am not sure.
What do you plan on going to? Well, do you plan on going to college? Just kind of
Yes, I
personal.
do.
Yeah.
I'm currently in an early college high school, so I already have taken some college, and I'm going to be graduating from college 2 weeks before I graduate from high school.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so I'm going to be graduating with an associate's degree after that.
That's pretty
Currently,
nice.
I'm currently either looking at University of Texas in Arlington,
Mhm.
Sam Houston State, or the University of Houston, maybe Texas State as well.
Mhm.
But other than that, I'm also going to be going into the Army.
Okay. Okay. What's your what influences that decision?
For the Army,
Yeah.
uh, both my sisters have been in the Army. My brother-in-law is in the Army. Great grandfather was in the Army. Other ex-brother-in-law now Marines. So I've pretty much grown up around the military.
Okay. Pretty neat. Brendan's brother's going to the Marines. Um, well, I hope you can bring plenty of Yule. Is Yuletide? Is that part of Yule?
Yeah, it's basically Yule is to Christmas as Yuletide is to Christmas time.
Okay, okay, that's cool. I hope you can bring plenty of Yuletime cheer to whatever you do with your life in the army.
Uh,
And thanks for talking to us.
yeah, not a problem.
Awesome. And after this, we're gonna show you the pictures we drew of you.
Okay.
Alrighty. So talk to you later, man.
All right.
Thanks for
Bye.
being on.